Boys and girls, do you know what the Big Dipper is? It's stars up in the sky that are formed just like a pan with a long handle, the kind Mother cooks your cereal in. There are the dippers, the little one, and the big one, and the Milky Way. The Milky Way is just a lot of stars, so many that it looks like a streak of milk across the heavens at night. It was right under the handle of the Big Dipper, high in the heavens, that Witch Creekbones lived. We always picture witches as thin, ugly, and wicked, but not Witch Creekbones. She had a little nose that looked like a button, bright twinkling eyes, and the nicest chin you ever saw. And whenever she laughed, and she did mostly all the time, she tucked in her chin and shook all over. Her little house under the handle of the Big Dipper had a little star on top that lighted up at night, and anyone who wanted to visit Witch Creekbones at night couldn't possibly have missed it. But, like all witches, she did have a cat.
"Come on, Methuselah," she called to her cat. "I have to go to the Milky Way for some milk. It's a long walk, and I'd like to have some company. But, of course, you could go without your milk tonight." "Well, I'll be only too glad to walk with you." "Oh, you're a wise old cat. Come on, then, and bring the milk can with you. I'll get my broomstick. Wise old cat. Ready?" "Well, all ready."
Methuselah licked his lips with his little pink tongue as he thought of fresh milk he'd have before bedtime.
"Oh, what a beautiful night!" exclaimed Witch Creekbones after closing the door of her little house and stepping on the handle of the dipper. She and Methuselah admired the gleaming stars. "Ooh, take a deep breath, Methuselah. Oh, it's wonderful, isn't it?"
"Meow."
"Just the night for thrilling adventure. What do you say, after we get our milk, let's go out and look for adventure?"
"Wow, that'll be fun. Let's go." They walked around the rim of the Big Dipper, careful not to fall into the water the dipper held. Methuselah stepped on the further end of the rim, looking down at the water that glittered like diamonds.
"Be careful, you'll fall in before you can help yourself."
"Well, not I," boasted the cat. But, boys and girls, before he could help himself, down he went kersplash. He looked so funny swimming about in the pool of water, meowing, that Witch Creekbones stood on the rim and laughed until the tears ran down her cheeks. In went her chin, her eyes twinkled, and her little button nose became as red as a varnished cherry.
"Pull me out, Witch Creekbones. I'll drown or freeze to death." "Oh, you look so ridiculous, Methuselah. Here, climb up my broomstick."
She stretched the broom down into the dipper. Methuselah needed no second bidding. He grasped the end of the handle and climbed up onto the rim where Witch Creekbones stood, chuckling.
"Well, that was some experience,"
said the cat, feeling sorry for himself.
"Only I don't think you should have laughed, Witch Creekbones. What if I had drowned?" "No chance in that. I know I shouldn't have laughed, and sorry, but you did look so funny."
And again Witch Creekbones tucked in her chin and went off into gales of laughter.
"Well, come on. We've still got to get the milk at the Milky Way."
So off they trudged around the rim of the Great Dipper, banging the milk can after them. When they reached the end,
"Hop on the broom, Methuselah. I'll carry the milk pail."
So up jumped the cat behind his mistress, and whirr, off they sailed on the broom in the direction of the Milky Way. Quick as a flash and 3/4, they landed right before the Milky Way. They scrambled off their broomstick and tied it to a post.
"Well, it won't be long, my pretty, before you get that nice fresh milk. Well, what do we have here?"
There, sitting in a forlorn little heap, weeping, was the little Princess of the Stars, Princess Nebula. As soon as Witch Creekbones spoke to her, she wept all the louder. "Oh, Witch Creekbones, it's just awful. I don't know what to do." All the little stars and subjects wiped their tears away.
Perhaps you'd better see for yourself, Witch Creekbones. Maybe you can do something about it. Well, I'd certainly like to know what's going on here, and I mean to find out right now. Come on, Methuselah.
Witch Creekbones was disturbed about the princess's unhappiness. Princess Nebula had always been a wonderful ruler to her little stars, and she'd always been kind to Witch Creekbones. The witch always bought so much milk at the Milky Way that the princess gave her several quarts extra for the same money. And now, here was trouble. So Witch Creekbones was determined to find out what it was and get rid of it. As she and Methuselah entered the Milky Way, surrounded by hundreds of milk cans, there stood the goblin of the Little Dipper, guzzling milk just as fast as he could pour it down his throat. The goblin was stubborn, powerful, and very bad when he wanted to be. But was our good Witch Creekbones afraid of him? Not one bit. She stood there looking at him with her piercing eyes. Then she tapped her foot impatiently.
Will Crowbeak?
Crowbeak, for that was the goblin's name, was in the midst of drinking a gallon of milk, and at the sound of the familiar voice he stopped short, glared at Witch Creekbones, and shouted,
Witch Creekbones, you go away and mind your own business. You're always butting into other people's affairs. Well, Crowbeak, this happens to be my affair, and what is this all about anyway? Quick now.
I'll tell you, Princess Nebula said.
And have you tell lies? Shouted Crowbeak. Either I tell the story or I drink every bit of your milk.
Princess Nebula shrugged her shoulders.
For years I've lived on nothing but drinking dew. Since my quarrel with Princess Nebula, everybody knows what a poor man I am.
He started sniveling, hoping to soften their hearts.
I couldn't afford to buy milk at that price. Oh, nobody knows how I've suffered.
He looked around to see what effect his sobbing had on the princess and Witch Creekbones. They knew the goblin of the Little Dipper had rooms and rooms in his house just filled with gold and stardust. No matter how much he whimpered, it did no good. As the goblin continued his story, he was so occupied in weeping and drying his eyes that he did not notice Witch Creekbones walking around and stopping to say a few words to each comet. He didn't even notice that they approached nearer and nearer, each picking up a milk can.
So, that's my story,
finished the goblin, wiping his eyes.
Oh, and such a sad one, too, said Witch Creekbones, pretending to be sympathetic. What shall we give him to make up for all the trouble we caused him, dear comets?
And before the witch could say anything more, there came such a clattering of milk pails and cans thrown at the goblin that he yelped every time he saw one coming at him. And what a clanging and banging as they hit against one another and crashed to the floor.
Hey, you stop that! I won't have it! Ouch! Stop a minute, comets, shouted Witch Creekbones. Well, Crowbeak, have you had enough?
Creekbones refused to answer.
Well, Crowbeak?
Still no answer.
You asked for it.
And with a mighty shove, the witch knocked the goblin over into a huge empty milk can that stood directly behind him. She very quickly locked on the cover, and the two comets sat on top. Crowbeak banged on the side of the can with all his might.
Let me out! Let me out, I say!
Will you promise to behave yourself?
Yes, gladly, and I'll give you 2 bags of stardust, too.
Very well, but you see that you keep your promise, or all will go bad with you. The comets jumped off and opened the can, and out came the goblin, looking very much ashamed indeed. True to his word, he did behave himself, and besides, he gave them 2 bags of stardust. Princess Nebula was very grateful. Oh, dear Witch Creekbones, I don't know how to thank you enough for helping me. What can I do for you?
Oh, it was nothing, Princess. But you can give me a can of milk for Methuselah. We'll clean out of it.
Witch Creekbones received 2 cans of milk, enough to last her for a good long time.
Well, we didn't have to look very far for adventure, did we, Methuselah?
Asked Witch Creekbones as they walked along the rim of the Great Dipper on their way to their little house, nestled under the handle.
It was practically in our own backyard. Well, do let's hurry, Witch Creekbones. I shall simply die for want of some of that sweet milk. I'm afraid it's not quite so bad as all that. On second thought, I'm a bit thirsty too, and I think we've earned that extra milk too, don't you?